the EscapeGoat podcast, a podcast series featuring the discussion of many different topics, flaws and all, based on personal whims and fascinations. Hosted by me, David Fagiani, and several different guests. Hello, and welcome to episode 30 of the EscapeGoat podcast, which is I can't believe we got there at all. But I'm very happy to welcome back a man who helped me get there. In fact, who was the first guest on episode 1 and sort of taught me, all I know about microphones, which is still not very much. This is my brother, Matt. How are you doing?
Hey dude, I'm all good, thanks. Just still trying to figure out how the hell I can watch the Mortal Kombat movie this weekend.
It's a pressing concern, isn't it?
It sure is.
Yeah, I was looking into. I haven't checked this week, but I actually, I did that thing of, some people just use like Twitter to like basically just holler at corporations all the time, and I just tweeted at the Prince Charles Cinema in London, which is kind of in the process of tentative reopening at the moment. I was like, excuse me, asking for a friend. Are you showing the new Mortal Kombat movie? And then I was like, I'm not asking for a friend.
Yeah. Oh, nothing to be ashamed of, dude. I mean, it can't possibly be any worse than Mortal Kombat Annihilation, or any better, which is paradoxical. But you get what I mean, and I'm sure the viewers, the listeners, probably do as well.
They released like a sort of 7-minute. Like sort of preview or something, didn't they? Kind of like Dark Knight Rises style, like first bit of the film, basically, didn't they? To sort of tease.
First taste is free, yeah.
Yeah, I've not watched that yet, but I mean, obviously it has to be ridiculous because Mortal Kombat's ridiculous. I hope it's ridiculous.
It's great. I mean, it looks really good. It looks really cool, and the special effects are fantastic, and the fight choreography looks really cool. The characters Sub-Zero and like Scorpion are introduced straight away, but in a really cool manner. I've got every reason to be excited, but as I said, it might fall between the stools that it's not silly enough or it's too serious, and it's not. It's just like in the sort of Zack Snyder way, it mistakes like darkness for broodiness or whatever. It just doesn't quite work. So, but we'll see. I've got high hopes.
I wonder if they need to get, because I assume it's like mostly unknowns or people only known to sort of fairly obscure like kung fu movie sort of genre stuff and everything. But I wonder if what it needs is like a bit like in for the Street Fighter movie they had Raul Julia. Oh God, rest in peace. Rest his soul. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Mortal Kombat needs something like some ridiculous character actor. Like, was it you and I who were joking like about Daniel Day-Lewis being attached to something like that one day?
To be Raiden, I'll show up as Raiden.
But playing it with the moustache from There Will Be Blood.
Yeah. Oh man, that would be great. But yeah, hope springs eternal. But the chances are very low. I don't think we're going to get any surprising cameos. I think, to be fair on the movie, I think that it looks like it's mostly unknowns that have been cast, which is actually kind of really cool in a way. It doesn't seem to have any star power behind it. Just simply, incredibly cool special effects and fight choreography, judging by the trailers and everything like that. And I think it's going to be that R rating, that sort of X rating that we didn't get in the 90s, and even as kids in the 90s when we were obsessed with the games. When the movie came out, we kind of knew it wasn't quite right. We knew something was up. It was it had some cool moments in it. Some pretty awesome fight scenes, but overall it was kind of, was it a 12 rating or a PG even, or I don't know. It wasn't. Might have been a 15. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think 15's about right. I suppose the weird thing about not that I'm like a proper Mortal Kombat fanboy in the sense that I've kept up with the franchise or anything. Most of what I remember from it is still from our childhood. But when the first Mortal Kombat movie came out, it was, I think, Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, the games had come out.
Yeah.
And you can see that kind of, because like the first movie is basically, as loads of people commented, it's basically Enter the Dragon with the plot. Well, Mortal Kombat the game is basically Enter the Dragon, yeah, but like it's that with a few elements from 2 thrown in, and then the kind of mess that is Annihilation is kind of a weird Funhouse mirror version of Mortal Kombat 3. And
yeah.
But like now, there's so much. There's like decades of lore for those paying attention to that sort of stuff, and like decades of expansion and arguably over expansion of the premise. And you kind of, I don't know what you'd extract from that now to make a Mortal Kombat movie. You know?
Well, that's it. We've got like something like 11 signature games, and then we've also got like loads of sort of offshoot and like some sort of RPGs and stuff over the PlayStation 2, and it's like you say, there's so much to draw from. There's even been a couple of attempts at miniseries and short films and stuff, and every single time they would release like a new set of short films on YouTube, we thought, right, next thing will be a movie, and it just never happened. And like we've pretty much been waiting for a decent Mortal Kombat movie since Mortal Kombat the game came out, in 1993, like or whatever it was. So yeah, I just hope I hope it does its job. I hope it's got a good sense of humor, but it's also incredibly dark and rich as well. And it does look like it's ticking all the boxes so far, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it should be a bit of light relief at the very little. So turning to the main topic today, I'll get straight into it because there's quite a lot to cover. There's an embarrassing amount to cover, really, but from to a slightly more high art considered pop culture property than Mortal Kombat. So we got together, and I think it was a while. I meant to check the date, but I think it was a while ago now. Last autumn, certainly. To talk about you watching The Sopranos, with your wife, for both of you for the first time. And I'll put a link in the show notes to the first installment of us doing that, because we discussed your kind of fairly first impressions of kind of series 1 and 2. And I'll just get down to ground rules here, because I've as people who listen to that episode know, I've seen all The Sopranos. I've probably seen every episode a minimum of 3 times, and some of them I've seen 10, 15 times or whatever. So whereas Matt is watching all of these for the first time. So he's just made his way through series 3 and 4 now, haven't you? And I think you just finished series 4 a week and a half ago, something like that. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, so it's pretty fresh.
Yeah, cool. So the ground rules are. So I'm going to try and not spoil anything at all, obviously, for your sake.
Right.
I'm definitely. We will be spoiling series 1 and 2 just because we'll be referring back to our chat about them. But basically, the idea is you'll be able to listen to this podcast if you've only seen, like Matt, if you've only seen up to the end of series 4 of The Sopranos. So no spoilers in this episode for series 5 or either part of series 6. Nothing there. And if I let even if it's not something you register as a first time viewer, Matt, if I catch myself doing like a sort of spoiler or something, I'll edit it out basically. So
yeah, well that's it. You've got the power to re-listen and to cut it out if needs be. So we don't have to be too tight about it. Yeah, and also like I should say to any listener, I know there's tons of podcasts out about The Sopranos. I know it's been covered in depth ad infinitum. Some of these episodes will be touching on that you could do entire hours-long podcasts on that one episode. So this is very much not meant to be that. We have no pretense of that. This is me kind of like more like checking with Matt, like about what is like kind of like what the big impressions made on him are, and who he likes, who he's into, who he's rooting for, what moments he was most affected by. Kind of image, just kind of getting that kind of initial reaction out. So basically, if we miss something or skip over it, I know, right? I know we did. Yeah. So if that's very much the experience that you're in for. Saying that, we'll hopefully throw in some interesting stuff.
You know what they say? Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it.
Old scores.
I'm still the boss of this family.
You are such a hypocrite. This is my house.
New blood.
You're a main guy now.
Don't go! I'll call your wife!
The story continues.
I didn't do nothing.
It was too late. All right, I don't believe anything you say.
Why do you put your marriage in such danger?
Maybe I'm looking for a way out.
The Sopranos, the complete 3rd season, the biggest and best year yet.
These things come in threes.
That's how we think. Come on. You better wipe that smile off your face.
I've given my life to this thing.
Ralphie's a made guy, Tom. Make him disappear or make nice.
The Sopranos, the complete 3rd season on DVD and video, only from HBO Home Video.
So series 3 of The Sopranos aired in I think it was 2001. And or late 2000. They're starting off actually firm ground already. And I think it's we talked a little bit about the sort of reception of series 1 and 2 when the show really started blowing up, and I think you could definitely say whatever whatever the cultural place of series 2, by series 3 it had really it hit an imperial stride. You know, I mean, it was very talked about. It was really well known. I mean, I said that the first episode of The Sopranos I ever caught on British television on like late night Channel 4 where we talked last time was Funhouse, which is the finale of series 2, which is the one where they take Pussy out on the boat to kill him, you know.
Yeah.
So I think when this series started on British television, I was kind of looking out for it to an extent. Still had not much idea what was going on with it, but I remember it, you know, being in the Radio Times and things like that. So the episode that kicks off the third season, that's the one obviously with it that barely has the Sopranos in it. You know, that's the kind of gimmick, is that it's mostly following the FBI around as they try and put that lamp in Tony's basement.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was quite distinctive, and a kind of one of the things that's obviously distinctive about it, and is very sort of beginning of the noughties about it, is, you know, they do that mashup thing of the soundtrack. You know, they have like I think it's the Peter Gunn theme, the cop show theme, mixed with Every Breath You Take by Sting and the Police, and that was very kind of. I mean, that was quite innovative at the time, but there was also probably a little bit of kind of, you know, dad dancing at a wedding, in the sense that The Sopranos was, you know, kind of channeling the sort of like youth culture of, like, you know, I'm thinking like people like Soul Wax and stuff, and kind of like going, oh yeah, this is what the kids are into these days. And I think there's
a few generations removed.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think one of the things I find quite charming about it, on, you know, watching it now or even at the time, was just it's kind of like the mashup soundtrack bit of it's kind of slightly clumsy, you know, and it's kind of like it's not that neat. And it is almost like a dad having a go on some decks and kind of going, this is roughly what a mashup is, right? And it's kind of, yeah.
It kind of suited though, because the FBI are that as well, aren't they? They're not cool in any way, you know. They're kind of like, you know, it was the Sopranos and the gangsters are the cool guys, and pretty, you know, what's the word, like unfathomable? What is it? You know, just pretty, you know, kind of like, you know, all powerful and all cool, and then the FBI are kind of clumsy and fucking about. So it kind of suited that for me. It kind of works quite well in that sense.
Yeah, no, it does get that across, and it's kind of a great way to reintroduce the family as well, because I suppose if you are just coming into it, you know, every series of a show will at least to some extent be trying to attract new viewers, maybe up to like the final season or something, you know, and this kind of gives you that in, doesn't it, where you're kind of finding out about the family bit by bit through some quite clever writing and kind of like glimpses of them, until you get, I think it's right towards the end of that episode, you get kind of Tony and Carmella just chatting in the laundry room or something, and, you know, like Meadow comes in and you kind of get a bit more of that context, you know.
I mean, you know, just to start off by saying, like, you know, I just, you know, this is one of those shows that when I watch it, like the best episodes of TV and the best films, I am just completely absorbed. There's nothing else going on in the universe when I'm watching The Sopranos. I'm just, especially when Tony's on screen as well, it's, you know, the complete absorption in it. Like, there's no way that, you know, I absolutely love it, and it, you know, there's time spent with them is just amazing. Like, you know, they're so well developed and well rounded, all of the characters, even by series, you know, the end of series 1, you feel like you know them inside out. So yeah, any time spent with any of them, there's no character in the thing where I'm like, you know, I'm turned off by it and I'm just like, I don't believe this, or I don't believe this performance, or this character is silly or ridiculous. I mean, there are eccentric characters in it, but they're all so believable. Like, that's kind of what's mad about it. So yeah, even sort of mundane household setting scenes like that are just wonderful.
Yeah, watching, I mean, yeah, definitely on the domestic scene, like watching Tony, you know, spar with Carmella, at least when it's relatively lighthearted, or watching him, you know, chastise AJ or Meadow and stuff is always, like, feels weirdly fond, doesn't it? And I shouldn't, you know, this is making it sound like, you know, moral Tony Soprano fanboys. I think we'll probably illustrate in the episodes to come that we're not that, but he is, James Gandolfini is just, I mean, I think unsurpassable as Tony Soprano, and I think there's a magnetism even to his venality and evil, of course, isn't there? You know, I mean, like, you know, yeah. But when he's being the nearest to a good human, or, you know, just a well-rounded human that he is, which I guess is in his family scenes, or maybe when he's complaining slightly less to his employees. You know, there's a pleasure to that, isn't there? There's a pleasure to seeing the gangsters all hang out at the Bada Bing, you know, and just kind of hang out in the nearest thing to their clubhouse, basically.
Well, Tony sort of showed his cards pretty like early. I think it was in season 1 or 2 where, you know, he says to who the T-1000, you know, the
Robert Patrick, yeah, he has that role in season 2. Yeah.
Robert Patrick, you know, which is my favourite moment in the whole show today. It's like, you know, he basically bankrupts him and sends him packing, and he says, what the hell are you upset about? Like, you get to go, you get to leave and start again. Like, you know, like, why the hell are you so depressed? You know, and that for me was the heart of Tony. He feels such a kind of responsibility and, you know, a commitment to the life that's something beyond him, you know, it's something he can't escape, that you know, I mean, you have to move the moral goalposts quite a lot, but, you know, you just think to yourself, you know, he feels trapped. You know, there's something about Tony that is trapped. You know, whether it's he's made, you know, it's a prison that he's made for himself. But, you know, after, you know, everyone does that, so it's kind of like, you know, you do have a sort of a weird kind of sympathy for him on some level.
Yeah, you can sympathise with sort of universal elements of Tony's condition without implying that you are doing exactly the same things as him with your life, or even anywhere close. You know, it's.
Yeah, but also, you know, you do just have to, you know, if you're going to enjoy a show like this, you can't go through it going like, well, that's just terrible, Tony. You know, you've got to move your moral goalposts around and just work within those parameters. You know,
yeah.
It's like, you know, there are certain characters who are, you know, who are innocent in The Sopranos. I think Meadow, I think, is probably like the most innocent character. Not many. Yeah, maybe Meadow and even AJ is kind of like, you know, a little bit messed up. So yeah.
Well, they're like, I think I talked to you about this in the previous episode. I mean, that they're like recognisably bratty kids, aren't they? You know, which is different from being evil, or you know, or so down a rabbit hole that your actions have become evil. You know.
Well, it's a miracle that they're so, you know, that they're as nice as they are, really. You know, that's the kind of thing. Although, you know, Carmella's like, you know, she keeps a good house and she's a good, you know, Carmella's pretty all right, you know, like, I mean, I can't, you know, think of them. I mean, she does start going down some pretty crazy roads in season 4, but like, you know, and obviously it's kind of like that Diane Keaton thing from The Godfather. It's like, you know, how much does she know? She knows pretty much everything. I think she knows it all.
Yeah, well, we'll talk a bit more about Carmella later. I actually want to get, what I'll do is as we go through, we'll kind of dedicate most of the first half of this episode to Series 3, and I'll then move, we'll have a break and we'll move on to Series 4. But just before, I want to throw some sort of episode highlights at you, because I think Series 3 is... there's always some sort of plot line running through Sopranos series, but I think Series 3 and 4 are arguably the loosest. You could make the case, and they are. People, like loads of critics, have referred to the Sopranos as, although it's heavily serialized by, say, early 90s TV standards, it's often, the cliche is almost like it's like a collection of short stories. Like each series is like an anthology of short stories with a sort of spine running through it, and I think that's maybe particularly true of these. And I think obviously no spoilers for Series 5 and 6 as I declared, but I think you can probably see from the shape of most TV shows, like Series 1 and 2 is Tony establishing his empire and his grip on it. Series 3 and 4 are obviously him, you know, just in plot terms, they're just obviously him on top and running that, and, you know, seeing how it goes and ebbing and flowing. And you know, without giving any specifics away at all, you might imagine that Series 5 and 6 build to a kind of, you know, an end of this status quo, you know.
Naturally, it has to. I mean, I didn't think things would continue on their, you know, upward trajectory.
They have such as it is. Far. I mean, that's the sad thing, isn't it, for Tony Soprano as a character? This is kind of the top, and it's terribly depressing and upsetting and horrendously traumatic and everything. But I just wanted, before we move into Series 3, sort of, and I discuss some highlights with you, the obvious absence from the bulk of Series 3 is Livia, because the actress passed away before the filming of before the filming of Series 3. She passed away.
Oh, she was so fucking great, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, it's, you know, I don't know, it'd be a while ago since you watched it now, but do you remember at the end of Series 2, and I think they referred to it briefly at the beginning of Series 3, they were sort of setting up this plot line with Tony's given us some sort of like dodgy airline tickets to go away somewhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's got caught with them, and she's like having to give testimony, and so there's this kind of big plot line being queued up where, you know, Livia, the feds might get their claws into Livia and she might be playing them and all that kind of stuff, and that is basically what they were going to do, apparently.
Right.
So that was going to be, you know, Livia maybe getting the upper hand over Tony again, and him having to make deals with her, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, maybe find a balance of power with her in the same way that he kind of has with Junior and things like that. None of it happened because Marchand passed away. They didn't want to recast it or anything like that. Yeah. In leaning into it, and again, this, you'll have seen bits of this already, but I think in leaning into it, they probably made a wise choice, just because it's something that makes The Sopranos feel more real, is that these grand squabbles, and well, that's more than a squabble with Tony and Livia, but, you know, these grand dramas that shape your life, these kind of Freudian nightmares that hover over them, they can just disappear because people, you know, villains are just human too. So an old woman who's made your life a misery can die all of a sudden and leave you kind of bereft of hating her, as well.
It's quite naturalistic in that way, and I think that as much as I was, every time Olivia was on screen, I was nervous. Like watching it, she's just such a powerful presence. But however, I think also it kind of like for Tony's character, I think that having his parental figures dead is kind of better in the way that he can remember them with a little fondness, or with a kind of a skewed fondness. Like with his dad and stuff, we find out that his dad was obviously a completely, horrible nutter. But, he does have that weird kind of like fondness for him. And I think with Olivia as well, there was a bit of like, because she was becoming so evil, inherently you were like, he can't have any kind of love towards her whatsoever. You need that little bit of like maternal love going on there to sort of, again, for him to sympathize with. But so yeah, the fact that they got rid of her is kind of better, because then you remember her like, and he can sort of think of her in more of a, what I mean, in more of a kind of philosophical way. Thinking she's my mum, she did these things, but however, she was my mum and I did kind of love her. Whereas when she's in the show, you're just like, how could anyone say those? She's just so evil. It's like, so yeah, I think it kind of benefited from it, although I did miss her because she's just so wonderful.
Oh, she's fantastic. I mean, it's that funeral episode as well is Proshkai Lavushka. That's the second episode of series 3, where it has them all gathered at the home, and like they're all kind of making awkward speeches, and it's Carmella. I think Carmella has a couple of drinks and basically just says, no one liked her, like, this is ridiculous, which is pretty bold for Carmella, really. I suppose it shows you like she's been waiting to emerge from under the shadow for probably like a good 20 years,
Yeah, exactly. But it sort of breaks the ice totally, and then everyone can then relax and like get on with the wake.
I think it's that episode as well where the Sopranos is a show that I think I talked to you even before you'd seen it. Really, that the Sopranos is a show that becomes increasingly haunted by a whole bunch of stuff, and you'd kind of expect that of shows with like relatively large death tolls and stuff like that, both natural death and hits and stuff. But I think there's a scene in that episode where Tony goes upstairs and sort of American Werewolf style, like briefly sees pussy in the mirror.
Yeah. That was great, and I couldn't help thinking of any time like a friend or like someone like that comes back in a sort of a dream sequence or like a flash cut in the mirror or something. I can't help thinking of American Werewolf.
No, I mean definitely. There's something I'll sort of. I'd say there's two main threads running through series 3. Well, there's always a lot going on in any series of The Sopranos, but the two main threads, if you had to summarize it, someone would probably be you'd say it's the Jackie Jr. one. And you'd probably say it's the Gloria one, in terms of Tony's girlfriend that he meets. But we should probably get out of the way that the sort of, because it's kind of relatively outside both of those things, we should probably get talk about Pine Barrens out of the way. Because I think you were kind of aware that Pine Barrens, the episode directed by Steve Buscemi, where Paulie and Christopher get lost in the woods. You were kind of aware, I think you were a little bit aware of that episode existing, weren't you? And kind of like the reputation it had.
I think you like over the years might have shown me some clips from it, because it was quite familiar like when I watched it, and it was pure comedy, and it felt very much the Coen brothers Fargo sense of humor, which was quite funny. Obviously being Steve Buscemi, and that's probably why they hired him to do it. They were probably like, we need to have a Fargo episode, we need that, and it was hilarious. It was so funny. And those two as a like strange odd couple in the woods on this like mission again. It's that thing of total like I don't know what I don't know what the phrase is, but like when you watch something that's so horrendous and so dark, it's like the ultimate black comedy.
It's great. I rewatched it the other week, and I hadn't seen it in ages, and I'd forgotten that it even has the moments of comedy where like Paulie's trying to communicate with Tony over the phone, and he's getting like little, and Christopher is, and they're getting little bits of like misheard dialogue through and stuff, and kind of is it like Tony describes the Russian who they've nearly killed as like is it like he was a Chechnyan who like worked for the Interior Ministry, and Paulie's like he was a Czechoslovakian, he was an interior decorator.
Oh man, yeah, it was brilliant, and the sort of the illusions that he's some sort of like SAS like man, like highly trained guy, so the threat level, the sort of the stakes are so high in that episode, and they seem all the more like bumbling and stupid because of it, But it was great, and Paulie, is it Tony Sirico?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Sirico. It is just I don't know. I can't decide which character I like more, which actor. Like Silvio, Paulie, they're just all such like incredible performances, and just you've never seen characters like this before. Even in like the best gangster movies, like they're all so on the edge of just being like ridiculous but brilliant and terrifying at the same time.
Well, were you quoting back? We'll get on to series 4, Christopher's intervention scene. But were you the one saying to me, like, quoting back that thing of like, great drama is kind of, or great comedy even is, or anything is putting a bunch of characters in a room and you've written them well if you know how each character would react. And I love that.
Yes.
And I love that, like, you could have taken basically any two of Tony's crew and it would have been a hilarious episode if you'd put them out in the Pine Barrens. But like you choose Christopher and Paulie, and you've got like two very specific characters and their relationships and insecurities to Tony as well. Are very specific.
Yeah.
One's the kind of old man who's worried about his position, and the other one's the young man trying to like make an impression. And
Yeah, so incredibly well defined. Yeah, it was the thing of like, if you're writing something, you should know how your characters would react if a grizzly bear suddenly burst through the door. What they would do. And it's that thing of like, in a intervention situation, you just know already. You can tell. It's that thing you can tell by looks. When someone looks at another character or looks at towards the camera or whatever it might be, you know exactly what they're thinking. And that's just good writing and good characterization, because it's all been built so well that you feel like you kind of know, you feel like you know the people, which is which is disturbing to say, but you really do.
Motherfucking cocksucker!
That Tony? What'd he say?
I don't know. Oh! Do that by your own window. I don't want to smell your piss.
Fuck you.
What did you say?
You heard me.
Don't make me pull a rank on you, kid.
Fuck you, Paulie. Captain or no captain, right now we're just two assholes lost in the woods.
Do yourself a favor, Chrissy, and go back to fucking sleep.
Why, so you could choke me?
What?
Think I'm stupid. I heard you on the phone trying to blame this on me.
Fuck you talking about?
You fucked up with the Russian prick, now you're worried about Tony. You wait till I'm asleep, then you'll choke me so he'll just have your version.
Choke you right now, you fuck!
I'll leave you here, you cocksucker!
Put it down, Chrissy.
You know how fast I can run, I'll leave you in the fucking dust!
All the shit we've been through. You think I really kill you?
Yeah, I do.
Promise me you won't leave me here.
I'm not gonna leave you.
Do you, because obviously by the end of Pine Barrens and by the end of the series you've watched, series 3 and 4, the Russian hasn't re-emerged, hasn't appeared again. Do you know, like spoilers, do you know whether he does or not?
No, and to be honest, I'd kind of completely forgotten about him.
Oh, right. Okay, interesting. Well, that's valid too.
Yeah, which is weird because, when I was watching the end of the episode, I thought, oh, God, this is going to come back to haunt them. And then so much other mad shit happens. I just completely forgot about it.
Yeah, because I wondered with you and Sally, whether there's certain things that you're starting to have in your heads as things that may recur. Because obviously Skippy had a little bit towards the end of Series 4. Obviously, Furio disappears. Supposedly back to Italy, and that's not been resolved yet either. So there's kind of stuff like that that's starting to bubble along,
There's a lot of skeletons being slotted into Tony's closet, that's for sure.
Yeah, of the living and the dead, yeah.
Yeah, the living and the dead. Yeah, well, I wasn't thinking about that until now, but yes, now I really am. But I think that, with TV shows, I don't always, I think you probably feel the same. You're not always sure whether these things are going to be wrapped up nicely or not, or whether they are just going to be like individual directors have done this, amazing self-contained episode, but it might never come back around. Sometimes these things do get kind of forgotten about.
Yeah, and there's something very Coen Brothers about that as well, isn't there? And I guess that kind of Coen-esque sensibilities seeping into television, mostly through The Sopranos and obviously the things that influence of like somewhat artfully leaving unwrapped up plot points as to make it feel more lived in,
Yeah, definitely. But no, it was a superb episode. That was one of my things about, I think it was season 3, where I just kind of thought that they kind of dropped the psychiatrist character a little bit, Lorraine Bracco. Bracco. Yeah, I've got it. The actress. I've got it up on Google.
Dr. Melfi.
Dr. Melfi. Yeah, I felt that The Sopranos was probably sold to HBO as, wouldn't it be, a great show if a gangster had a psychiatrist? That's the plot, isn't it? That's the pitch. So for me, I felt like that felt like it had almost just been dropped and kind of forgotten about for the majority of it, which is fine. Like, I'm not saying that they have to sort of stick to, what the original concept for the show was, but it did become a little apparent to me when she reappeared. I just remember thinking, oh yeah, where have you been? It did feel a little bit like, do we really need you there? But
I don't think I don't think their scenes ever become bad. In fact, I'd say they rarely are anything less than great. It's just the plot overall. It's actually, I was wondering what to ask you about next, but you've kind of dictated it for me. So one of the big, well-remembered episodes in Series 3 is Employee of the Month, which is the one where Dr. Melfi is raped in the car park. Oh, God, that was horrendous. Yeah, it's really horrible, isn't it? And Lorraine Bracco just plays the hell out of every bit of that episode.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people in the Sopranos fandom who kind of use that episode as an illustration to say that, like, in some ways, and obviously there is more to come. Obviously, she's not a big spoiler to say she's around for the bulk of the rest of the show, but like it's in some ways Melfi's plot reaches a kind of climax there where she, because her whole thing in that episode is, essentially she pursues all the legal options for recompense and justice, and they all get closed off to her, and then the big dilemma is she going to mention it to Tony, basically. And she, and that famous last scene, she just says no, and the episode ends.
That was pretty superb, actually. I thought that was really, really great, and because I really didn't know which way it was going to go, because obviously how horrendous the attack was. I was just thinking, I found that scene really, really shocking. But there's a French film called, oh God, people correct me on this. I can't remember. There's a French horror film that's really famous for having a really violent rape scene in it, and I watched that and I nearly turned it off. It was really, really horrendous to watch. But anyway, I felt a little desensitized to it, because of that scene was so horrendous, but on a kind of an equal level. But then I thought, this is HBO, this is like TV, and again, like the scene in season 1 where he strangles that guy, and that was such a landmark TV moment of horrendous violence. That I just remember thinking, God, this is really, like, for TV, this is crazy. Like, this must have made such a big impact. Like,
Yeah, and it's kind of, this has become such a huge argument in the decades since, isn't it? Obviously last decade quite a lot with Game of Thrones, amongst other shows, but like, whether it's a good idea to, on a number of levels to depict rape in any drama show really. I was just thinking, like, obviously you could have something else happen to Melfi and she could, she want recompense. She could have her violently beaten up, or even just mugged, or wronged, or fall into some sort of financial problem that is tempting. But I think this is going to be controversial, I guess. But I think the viscerality of rape as a type of attack feeds well into the kind of protector, maybe unsuitable protector themes that they're trying to get out with Tony.
Yeah, and
it's interesting that he just doesn't know. The whole plot revolves around him just not knowing it, and then kind of like we were saying with the Russian, the episode ends with him still not knowing it.
Yeah, which which again was a really interesting choice, actually. But I think that, but then as the audience, you know for sure what would happen.
Yeah.
If she told them, so it's very, very clear, and that tension is so much stronger than it actually happening. Like that tension of not knowing. But also, I was just thinking, what's interesting, about us saying how much we feel like we know the characters even after 2 or 3 seasons. Their chats initially, him and Melfi, like, is kind of, I guess, to build his character and to show you who he is and what he's thinking, like really like have a look into his mind. By season 3, we know him so well. It's almost like you don't need those scenes. They're almost like expositional scenes in a lot of ways, to show what he's feeling. By that you kind of know what his, what makes him tick. So. And
I suppose that's another good thing about good drama or comedy is that the characters need to be well written. You need to know how they act, but they need to an extent know each other as well. They need to anticipate those reactions.
Exactly. I think it was Irreversible that
Irreversible.
Yeah.
There you
it
go.
Was that was given to me, like, when people tell me, like, oh, have you seen, it was kind of like that competitive thing, like, have you seen Irreversible? Jesus Christ, no, but I've seen Martyrs. Oh, all sort of thing. And yeah, it was pretty horrendous. Martyrs is fantastic. I'll sell that over Irreversible any day.
Actually, there's a good link here because I wanted to talk about one of my favourite episodes. It might be my favourite episode of The Sopranos. It's certainly my favourite of Series 3, and it's University. And this is a good link, actually, because we talk about sort of female violence inflicted on women. It's the one where Ralphie beats Tracy to death outside the Bada Bing.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
Well, yeah. So I'm kind of going to leave some of the discussion of Ralphie to when we get into Series 4, because that's obviously where that Ralphie's story spans Series 3 and 4, which is another thing that isn't resolved in Series 3 that you might expect to be, But that's one of my favourite episodes, partly because I sort of fell in love with it the first time I saw it. Do you remember it begins with a song that the strippers are dancing to in the Bada Bing, and I think that song recurs about halfway through, and then it ends with it as well. And that song's "Living on a Thin Line" by the Kinks. And it's a later Kinks, because the Kinks are one of the 60s bands that sort of, a bit like the Stones, like stayed around for ages, and they were recording stuff well into, I think, the early 90s. And it's an 80s Kinks song, and I kind of became as obsessed with the song as I am with the episode, really, which I think is a great track. But do you remember that episode is partly about Tracy and about all the kind of men in her life who exploit her in various ways, up to and including Tony. And then the other half of it is kind of set at college where Meadow's settling in.
And they're sort of the same age, aren't they? So there's that parallel of like two lives lived in tandem, but absolutely different, completely different.
Yeah, Meadow's kind of, in a very middle class, just out of her teens way, or just getting out of her teens way is kind of taken advantage of as well. Do you remember her boyfriend Noah, who's a fairly unlikable character?
Oh God, yeah, he's such a prune.
Yeah,
that guy.
He's pretty bad. I mean, he's not a violent character, but he is in his own way, he is kind of dreadful.
What does he dump her for being boring, or no? What does he say?
He basically dumps her for threatening to ruin his grade curve, doesn't he? Kind of like.
Oh, he can't concentrate on his work or something.
Yeah, and I think you meet his dad, and his dad's really driven and kind of needs him to get all straight A's and stuff like that. And it's kind of, it's not just bad, it's lame, which is maybe.
Oh, which is so much worse. Lameness is unforgivable.
Certainly when you're that age. But the way it intersperses their plots is so interesting. But I find the whole thing with Tracy just so haunting, because that young actress who plays her is just she's got like the braces and stuff like that, so she kind of which is sort of like, in a sense, makes her look even more childlike and vulnerable than she actually is, and she's just got this horribly traumatizing life. I mean, you and Mike, your podcasting partner, you did an episode about Memento, didn't you? Which Joe Pantoliano is in, as who plays Ralph on The Sopranos.
Oh. Yeah, and recognise him straight away from that, and obviously from The Matrix as well.
Yeah, I can't. It's been so long since I've seen the first Matrix. I always know he's in that, but like I honestly can't even really remember what his performance is like or anything.
He's like the human baddie in The Matrix, who's like, again, spoilers, but he's kind of like, he's the human baddie who you think is a good, but he's like an undercover human bastard. He's
sort of the Judas in The Matrix, isn't he? He's like, if you take that as a whole religious allegory, he's the guy who sort of sells them out for his equivalent of pieces of silver,
Yeah, and he has that whole scene of eating the steak in the restaurant, saying like, I know that this steak isn't real, but ignorance is bliss.
Yeah,
sort of thing. Like, so he's brilliant. He's brilliant. But as soon as I saw him, I thought, you're a fucking wrong.
Yeah.
Straight away there was no question in my mind that he wasn't going to be an awful guy. He's just so good at playing it.
I think it's in University, if it's not just slightly before that, where he's still, I don't know if it's his first episode, but he's been introduced recently, and he comes in because you remember he's obsessed with Gladiator, which was then a very recent movie, and he's swinging that chain around. He ends up like getting the guy's eye and stuff.
Braining someone, yeah. I love the references. All the DVD talk was great, because it was the new technology, all the surround sound home systems and Gladiator and stuff like that. That was all I remember thinking. I remember being excited about DVDs and about the quality and so on. So that was really cool and took me back. Very nostalgic.
I remember the bit where Ralphie's criticizing Spartacus because Christopher's encouraging him to watch it or something, and he's just like, after being spoiled by Gladiator, he's not impressed.
Well, Silvio had a lot more film chat in the first series, and I was kind of, again, they dropped that a little bit, but he was always doing Godfather impressions and stuff, so I missed that a little bit, but
yeah,
he's not been in it as much, to be fair. He's certainly not a main character in any of the series, really, is he, Silvio, which is a shame.
No, I suppose it's, there's some great, I think The Sopranos has like a really good sense in terms of, it gives tons of people who have relatively small parts to start off with, like expanded roles. I mean, one we'll touch on a bit when we get to series 4 is Johnny Sack, for example, in New York, because he starts off as barely a background character, kind of, he'll come up to the Bing and you kind of get the vague impression he's something to do with New York, but you kind of, it's only really in series 3 and 4 that starts getting sketched in a bit more.
Yeah, and he's a pretty fucking awesome character as well. The way he plays people in this last series was just fantastic.
Fucking fantastic actor, yeah. No, I agree.
There was a lot of sly winks and nods, and I just thought, Johnny's just gonna fuck everyone over in this series, like after he betrays when he betrays Paulie, is for me that was one of the most brilliant moments, because I didn't see that coming at all. And the sort of the idea that he'd been leading him along the whole series, telling him that there's a space for you in New York and all that kind of stuff, and it's so obvious. You're just like, why wouldn't he do that? Of course.
Yeah.
It's such a subtle kind of betrayal, like for him, to get all the goods and all that. So then I thought, God, Johnny Sack is capable of anything now.
I mean, while we are still in series 3, I mean, what do you think of the kind of whole Jackie Jr. plot line? Because I mean, I think we just talk about great actors in The Sopranos. I think it's not that The Sopranos tends to have bad younger actors. It's just that I think it really is just the league they're playing in a lot of cases.
I thought it was. I thought it was fine. There was nothing wrong with the character, and it made sense. It made sense. Again, like Tony trying to keep him out of trouble, and also his connection with having what's his face as a stepdad as well, which is a horrendous prospect. Like Ralphie as a stepdad and stuff. I just thought that was great. And I liked him. And are you alluding to the fact that he's not considered a good actor? I don't know.
I think he inarguably is not one of the brightest stars in the Sopranos deck, but you could say that about some of the other younger actors as well, and but plenty of them
didn't stand out to me at all. No, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, I suppose this in a sense, obviously every season is about Tony's dilemmas and things that he faces, decision making he makes, and obviously he ends up eventually kind of moving out of the slight role of kind of like beloved uncle that he tries to play to Jackie Jr. while eventually ordering his death, or actually kind of in classic Tony style, he kind of makes Ralphie order his death, doesn't he? Like kind of like heavily implies that he should do it if he's a real boss, kind of,
Yeah, exactly. And I loved that. Like it was just and same to go back to Ralphie briefly, when he beats that girl to death who's pregnant, you're like, this character has no ceiling. That's to him, he didn't even care about that. He didn't bat an eyelid. That would have wrecked Tony if Tony had done something like that. And again, it's all equivalence, isn't it?
It's all relative, yeah.
It's all relative, yeah. Tony is bad, but he's not as bad as Ralphie.
Well, there's that kind of thing. I mean, Tony is bothered by that. You're right, and obviously, in the fourth series, we'll get back to talking about how much he might be bothered by that in the end. But the way he then takes small bits of vengeance on Ralph, kind of chipping him away. I mean, the very thing that he makes the decision over Jackie Jr.'s death to fall into Ralph's hands is a kind of cold revenge, isn't it? I mean, So Tony's really got that streak of Livia in him. We mentioned this actually going right back to series 2, didn't we? That like you kind of maybe more in her actual absence, you start seeing how Tony's personality is really drawing quite heavily on that well of bitterness and kind of cold manipulation.
And that could be, something that they wrote in because of the absence of Olivia, that he would actually immediately take, rather than fighting her, he would take after her more, because he sort of, she wasn't around to remind him not to be an arsehole,
Kind of he's learned from her in a sense.
Yeah, learned in the worst possible ways, but yeah, that's... God, it's so brilliant. You're just making me want to rewatch it from the start again, actually.
Already.
Just go through. Yeah, we've got some line of duty to finish before we go on to season 5, so just trying to rush through that as quick as possible.
Oh, that's fine. We need a bit of a buffer, in terms of scheduling. That's good.
Yeah.
So that's a good lead on to. So in this series, Tony starts seeing Gloria, who's the sort of she's a car saleswoman, isn't she? When he meets her.
Oh yeah.
And they have a kind of they refer to it in the show as a more food, don't they? This sort of crazy love, this sort of passionate love affair, which is also goes to some pretty dark, disturbing places. Because apart from anything else, I think Gloria's a patient of Melfi's, isn't she?
There's that connection, isn't it? That they actually meet in the waiting room, don't they? It's at one point.
Yeah, and you kind of learn quite quickly that. I'm not making Tony sound like the stable one in this relationship, but you learn that she's got loads of issues that were there before Tony, and that she's got a kind of self-loathing and kind of playing with dangerous men problem that is, she's definitely exercising with Tony. But you also get kind of, do you remember towards the climax of the series when I think it's their last scene together where they have a big fight and Gloria's like yelling "poor you" at him and stuff like that, which is something Livia used to say all the time.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That must have. Yeah. I can see why that got under Tony's skin.
Yeah. Well, you kind of get. I think the way the actress plays it, I don't know if she was deliberately channeling Marchon, but like it's kind of like. If they made a prequel, in fact, they are making this prequel Sopranos movie, aren't they? Was it the Many Saints of Newark? We might be able to do a review on that later in 2021. Or,
with James Gandolfini's son playing him, isn't that wonderful?
Well, I think it's very, very likely that you'll have a young Livia portrayed in that, however briefly. And I feel like Gloria's probably the actress who plays Gloria, whose name escapes me, is probably playing it something akin to that what you'd get of the young Livia.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
You want something to drink?
No.
I'm sorry. There's no one else I can talk to.
What about him?
Laugh if you want. He does help.
Yeah, he's a regular Captain Marvel.
I just wanted it to be the way it was. I love you.
Stop it, Gloria.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Quit fucking crying. I can't stand it.
I want to be with you.
Well, that's not gonna happen.
No. I know. My life's a trip to nowhere.
You bring it on yourself. You're a beautiful, talented woman. But you push a man away.
It's not gonna happen again.
Get on it with the ties. I'm a grown man. I've had other women. What do you think? I lived in a freezer before I met you?
Fine. I'll sit back like a mute while you screw every woman out there.
See, there's that tone again. Look. It's over. I mean, we had our no fall or whatever. And it was great. And now it's time to put it to bed.
Don't you think that you could treat me like some stupid fucking Goomba housewife? You think I'm gonna let some fucker shit all over me just because he buys me some ridiculous gaudy fucking ring?
Where the fuck do you get off, huh?
You don't care.
What do you think? You're the only one with problems? You think my life's a fucking picnic?
Oh, poor you. You got a fucking dream life compared to mine. Nobody cares if I'm alive or dead.
I didn't just meet you. I've known you my whole fucking life.
That's right. Take a dump wherever you please and then just walk away.
My mother was just like you. Bottomless black hole.
Oh, the mother now. I surrender. Burn me at the stake.
You know what? You're fucking crazy.
All I ever asked for was kindness.
Come here. Come here. You listen to me and you listen to me good. No more calls, no more nothing. You see me, you cross the street. Because you're a dangerous fuck and I don't want you in my life.
Don't go, don't go! I'll call your wife!
What'd you say?
I said this would largely focus on a lot of your kind of impressions and kind of like maybe like favorite moments and kind of elements of The Sopranos. Like you sort of unsolicited messaged me a month ago or something, didn't you? Just emphasizing how much you love Uncle Junior.
I do, and I really do. I love that character, and I'm not 100% sure why really, but I think it's kind of that. I know this is a really strange parallel, but that kind of Homer Simpson style. Change emotional change that you can go through.
Mm-hmm.
You can go from anything from being like, you know, completely calm and reasonable to basically sobbing, then back to angry again. You know, he's got that real kind of emotional, like, you know, turbulence going on that I really like. But also, I love any kind of world-weary character, you know, like in anything. I think it's probably comes from my love of Blackadder more than anything. But, you know, anyone who's world-weary and is kind of pissed off about the situation, even if it's, you know, a really a situation, a position of power that they hold or something, just to be sort of weary of it. I just think that's wonderful.
He's so funny, that actor, though, isn't he? I mean,
he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. And you mentioned when I said like he looks like Larry David, obviously mainly because of the glasses and stuff. You said, "Oh, it's interesting. You should say that." Can you elaborate on that anymore? Because I've been thinking about that for months.
I was just going to ask whether you'd got to that bit yet, but I guess the fact that you're asking that question means that you haven't. So that might
bit.
Yeah.
That bit. What bit?
Well, that might be in early series 5. Then we'll leave that.
Okay.
I'm afraid you'll have to string you out for a few more months.
Because I mean, I just can't. Obviously, with me thinking he's played by him, but I can't imagine that just would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
So like, I can't think of that. But you know, yeah, I'll.
Are you expecting like Larry David walks into the Bing or something, like, you know, like?
I don't know. I guess I'm like thinking, like, yeah, I don't know, maybe Junior in the 70s. I don't know.
Okay.
But like, we'll see. I guess I'll keep my mouth shut.
What we'll do after we've recorded is I'll check whether that's in early series 5, and if so, I'll tease you exactly when, because it's not, you know, it's not a very plot significant moment or anything, but it's a fun one.
Awesome.
Oh, glad keeping you hanging on for that. Anyway, I wanted to actually, one reason I went on to Junior is to wrap up series 3, and you know, and for all listeners, I know this is breakneck, you know, but you end up with Jackie Junior's funeral, don't you? That's the big sort of soprano gathering set piece.
Yeah,
and that's the one where Junior unforgettably sings "Ungrateful Heart," you know, in Italian.
That episode for me was absolutely superb, and I think that was the highlight of The Sopranos so far for me, to be honest.
Right.
There was something about that episode, that especially that scene at the end, the wake scene in the thing. Not even Junior singing as much, but I think it was mainly Meadows' departure and her leaving, and then Janice closing the curtains and saying, "Nothing to see here, kids." That was brilliant, because I remember texting you at the time and saying, "Well, Meadow is Janice." Because Meadows, you know, Janice would have gone through this when she was a little girl, a young woman.
Yeah.
So she's been through this. So she's conscious of it, and she's closing the curtains, saying nothing to see. It's like she's closing the curtains on her own past.
Yeah.
I just thought that was genius. I loved that.
Well, and even though Meadow flees the wake, you know, angry and drunk at Tony by implication, she's also started to do that insidious kind of mafia daughter cover up stuff, hasn't she? Like she's talking to her cousins at the wake, and they start talking about the people Jackie Jr. knew, and basically saying, "You idiot, you know what happened to him." And she's like, "No, we don't discuss this around outsiders. What are you doing?" You know, like, and she's pulling in at the same time and kind of like emphasizing that no, it was probably some black drug dealers, and you know, it's kind of I suppose she's also turning into a Carmella, isn't she? She's kind of turning into someone who uses the fact that she doesn't know everything as kind of a force field or as an excuse. You know, Tony's very efforts to keep her away are kind of dragging her into more of the sort of moral compromises and kind of blind spots that you have to make to be part of the Sopranos family or anywhere in their orbit, you know.
Yeah, it's but their relationship is great as well, because you know, you really you don't feel that Tony, like, there was a lot more animosity maybe in the first and second series, but like by this point you really feel that he does value her a lot, and she has, you know, I don't know, she's kind of redeemed herself in some ways. I remember I do like her a lot more now than I did, you know, in the first series. Definitely, I feel like she's got I don't know, she hates the right people, if you know what I mean, in a lot of the situations, you know. Yeah.
Well, we'll take a break there, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about series 4. We'll talk quite a lot about series 4, and we'll talk particularly about some characters that are either more emphasised in that series than they were in series 3, or whose stories draw to a close there, and we'll obviously highlight some episodes, and this stuff's slightly more recent in your mind, isn't it? But and some of it is in mine too. So we'll get onto that after the break.
Awesome.
Stories have been told of kings and days of old, but there's no England now. There's no all the wars that were won are lost, somehow don't seem to matter very much anymore. All the lies we were told, all the lies of the people running round their castles of blood. Oh, I see change, but inside we're the same as we ever were. Living on a full life. Tell me now, what are we supposed to do? Living on a full life. Tell me now, what are we supposed to do? Living on a full life. Living this way, stays a dream. Tell me now, what are we supposed to do? Living on a full life. Tell me now, what are we supposed to do? Now another century over and gone. What are we gonna leave for the
Welcome back. And moving on, Matt, to Series 4, Season 4 of The Sopranos.
Yeah.
I mean, to place that historically, it came out in 2002. I'm on more solid ground here. And it's the first post 9/11 series, to the point where they actually, the opening, the sort of iconic "Woke Up This Morning" opening theme of The Sopranos. There's a sequence in the first 3 seasons where the Twin Towers are in Tony's rearview mirror, and it's not there from Series 4 onwards.
Oh wow! I never noticed that. I never noticed them, and I didn't notice them being removed either.
Yeah. It's subtle, but it's there. And I think from memory, in the Series 4 premiere, they kind of make a few references to it, because obviously it's practically on their doorstep, So there's kind of it would have been a really easy way to kill off any characters that they didn't want to particularly take into Series 4.
Olivia. Yeah, if that had been timed right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, fans obviously love to debate, as with any of these things, over like what the kind of strongest and weakest seasons of The Sopranos are. And one of the ones that tends to get brought up quite a lot, it would probably top a few polls of like weakest season is Series 4. And I think, as I was kind of hinting at this with you before, but I think some of that's because it is maybe more so than Series 3, even quite formless, and it is just a kind of a bunch of stuff that happens. And I think probably the exception to that is Tony and Carmella. Tony and Carmella's marriage reaching absolute crisis point, I think kind of because that's been happening and bubbling along since the first series, it can't really count as just a Series 4 thing, can it? It's kind of it's a climax. It's a climax that's taken for series, but it doesn't uniquely belong to Series 4. So
that's true. Yeah, it's not an arc of one series, is it?
No, I suppose what is Carmella's kind of involvement with Furio, which is kind of the. I think it was back at uni I was getting really pretentious about The Sopranos, and I was saying there's quite a lot of Arthurian stuff in there, and you can see Tony as like King Arthur presiding over this kind of dying court and stuff, and if you do that, obviously Carmella's the Guinevere and Furio's the Lancelot, basically it's that kind of like, it's a little corner of the story where you have one of Tony's knights who has this unsuitable desire for his wife, and all that.
Yeah, and it's like, we see what you're doing here. Like, it's a bit. For me, it was just that thing of like, it was kind of made clear when I said to Sal when we were watching it. I said, "Yeah, really, is that this is pretty flimsy." Do you know what I mean? In terms of like someone that she would just suddenly, he's a good-looking guy. He's like a ridiculously handsome-looking guy, whatever. But I didn't feel any connection between them. So I felt that was all kind of. I felt like they could have picked a better character. Although having said that priest storyline in season 1 didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah,
that was very strange.
He sort of stuck around, doesn't he? Like I remember in this series, he Father Phil crops up in when Ralphie's talking about his son who's been injured and things like that.
Yeah, he still had a little part for him, but I felt they could have maybe picked someone like a little bit more. I don't know, kind of more interesting. Because for Carmella, it didn't feel like someone to me that Carmella would so easily fall for, because Fury doesn't have too much substance to him, and all we know him for really is being very Italian and incredibly violent.
Well, that's such an interesting thing, which I don't see many people talk about the Furio Carmella thing, because obviously she's going for him because he's a sort of sensitive, kind, relatively perceptive kind of nice guy within that world.
Yeah.
But she doesn't see him at work, and as you say, the bits we don't see. I think you were praising how funny it is, how darkly funny it is, isn't that bit where Artie ends up owing a French guy money, and then you just see Furio, like his door opens later in the episode, and Furio's there, and nothing needs to happen for you to know that didn't go well.
Yeah, that it's like, I thought that was great. And talk about character development. You don't need to see the murder.
Yeah,
that you just know that what Furio is capable of. You've seen him do it, so you know what the stakes are. That was a brilliant piece of like sort of editing. That I just thought was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, Edie Falco's Carmella is superb, and I don't actually a lot of people focus on this as kind of being her series, almost like the one where she gets the most chance to shine, and I think that is true. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about Whitecaps at the end, which is the series finale, which I think I like a bit less than a lot of people, because a lot of people have that as a sort of top 5 Sopranos episode and stuff, and I think it's a bit. For me, it's a little bit theatrical. Like I know that's a tricky thing to throw at TV. But what I mean specifically is the arguments between Tony and Carmella. I think there's a few lines in there that are a bit too fancy and are kind of like things that they wouldn't really say.
Carmella, who the fuck did you think I was when you married me, huh? You knew my father. You grew up around Dickie Moltisanti and your Uncle Eddie. Where do you get off acting all surprised and miffed when there were women on the side? You knew the deal.
Deal?
And your mother can talk all she wants about what's his name in his fucking chain of drugstores. You and I both know that the other boyfriend you were debating marrying was Jerry Toofy with his father's snowplow business. And we now know that wouldn't have suited you at all.
You really don't hear me, do you? You think for me it's all about things.
No, I forced all this shit on you. What you really crave is a little Hyundai and a simple gold heart on a chain.
You were so fucking hateful. Can I tell you something, Tony?
Don't pretend like I got a choice.
The last year, I have been dreaming and fantasizing and in love with Furio. Every morning when he'd come to pick you up, I would look forward to it all night long in bed. Next to you. Those nights when you were actually in the bed. And he would ring the doorbell. I felt like my heart would come out of my chest. He would smile, and we'd talk, and then you would come down the stairs. And I felt probably like someone who was terminally ill, and somehow they managed to forget it for a minute. And then it all comes back.
He talked to you all. Poor you.
He made me feel like I mattered.
You asked me the other day what Irene's cousin has that you don't have. And I thought about it because it's a pretty good fucking question. And yeah, she's sexy enough, even with the one pin gone, but that's not it. I could converse with her because she had something to say.
I am here. I have things to say.
Besides, bring the fucking chairs down and did you sign the living trust? She's a grown fucking woman who's been kicked around, and she's been on her own, and she's had to fight and struggle.
Unlike me, is that it? Who the fuck wanted it like this? Who the fuck pissed and moaned at just the idea of me with the fucking real estate license?
Free to sit back for 20 fucking years and fiddle with the air conditioning and fucking bitch and complain and fucking bitch to me, to your priest. Fuck it.
Yeah, I think the whole thing, as a finale, was kind of anticlimactic to me. I was pretty disappointed by that episode. I definitely didn't think it was anywhere near one of the best episodes, at all. And also, it just kind of felt like that Game of Thrones thing where they sort of peak on the episode before. Do you know what I mean? And then the next episode just felt kind of, because I think the murder of Ralphie is the episode before. Is that correct, or would it be the same?
I think it's the one before that, even, or if not 3 before. I think it's an even weirder structure where the climax, a big climax, as I say, it's just kind of a hangover from series 3 of Ralphie's death happens. I think maybe like 2/3 of the way through the season.
Yeah, because to me that didn't feel like a sure thing. I didn't see that coming necessarily. I know that it might sound weird to people, but I didn't think he was gonna, because I felt that if he was gonna top him, he would have done it earlier. If anything, I thought he was pretty bulletproof, really. In Tony's book, and then to see that happen, that to me would have been a much greater finale, to be honest with you.
What did you? I mean, that episode, whoever did this, it's called, is quite stunning, isn't it? Because it kind of, on rewatch, I was reminding myself that it's about half the episode before you actually get to that bit in Ralph's kitchen where Tony and him are talking, and then obviously they have that fight, and then the rest of it's disposal with Tony and a heroin-addled Chris, you know.
Well, I love the fact that they've just murdered, Ralphie, and it's like, are you high? That's like way more important somehow, you know. But that was kind of great because that kind of, it was like the in The Godfather, get the cannolis, out of the car. It was that thing of like, we've got bigger fish to fry here, rather than the guy that we've got to dismember.
Yeah, and that turns into a sort of Pine Barrens type thing as well, doesn't it? Where Chris and Tony are these two very specific characters that are interesting to put together while they're trying to do something that's difficult, you know.
Oh yeah, that was it, which is always humorous.
I love that. The way in which Ralphie's death is, because remember in the episode they're talking about the Pyomai's stables burning down and things like that. And Ralphie's off. They do that wonderful thing, don't they, in that episode where like the whole first 20 minutes of it's taken up by Ralph's son's archery accident. And he's in hospital, and you kind of, Ralphie doesn't become like a perfect person. He's like yelling at the mother in the hospital and things like that, and kind of flying off the handle. But you kind of see that side of it. He's like breaking down. He's crying about his son, and you kind of like, this guy. Just before they do that, just before they kill him, you're like, well, he's not good. He's not a good man, but he is a person. Like he has these.
Yeah, he's somewhat redeemed in that moment, and that's kind of the perfect time to top him. But which is kind of funny because Tony is more upset about the horse than anything else. So that's kind of like, who's the worst person here? Like a weird situation. That's kind of conflicting, isn't it? In a strange way.
Do you think Ralphie killed the horse? Do you think he burned the stables? Because they don't actually establish that.
Yeah, I think so. I think to me, I had not questioned it until now, until this very moment. Like I always thought it was, 100% that he did it. But I guess because
he doesn't actually say that. He tells Tony to get over it. He's like, it was a fucking horse, but he doesn't actually say I did it. There's a wonderful ambiguity there on both sides actually, because when Tony's beating Ralph to death, and he's kind of got the upper hand, he's just about to kill him, and he's like yelling at her, yelling at him like, she was a beautiful innocent life, and obviously I'm the 1,000th critic to say this, but you're obviously partly thinking of Tracy in series 3. Here comes the revenge. Tony's looking for a reason to murder him. Like, he doesn't necessarily have to be guilty of it. Because that's why it felt kind of weirdly spontaneous to me, and I really didn't see it coming. But now, if you put all those pieces together, then it's an inevitability, really.
Lois said the horse was still alive, but was burned so bad that they had to put her out of her misery.
I don't even want to think about it.
At this point, the fire marshal says that it looks accidental.
What sick fuck would do something like that on purpose, huh? Tone Justin loves my eggs. See, sour cream is a secret ingredient.
Right. What sick fuck?
What?
What's funny about God and fate and shit like that? The horse gets better and we take out $200,000 in insurance on a race coming up. Suddenly there's a fire.
What are you saying? You think I had something to do with it?
I didn't.
Anthony, what are you, a fucking arson investigator now? Come on. They said it was an accident, right?
You know what? Maybe I will have some eggs.
Toast?
Yeah. How's Corky Iannucci? You heard from him lately? Still used him in that restaurant fire. Excellent work.
I don't understand you, Anthony. We got lucky. That accidental fire was a bolt from beyond. The horse was no fucking good with the fucking colic all the time and the fucking bills.
What are you talking about? She bounced back.
This time. But each time it takes something out of him. It was all downhill from here. Now, I know it's tragic to think this way, but you can't argue with the fucking logic.
Jesus Christ, you did it. You cooked that fucking horse alive.
No, I did not. But so what?
So what?
It was a fucking animal. $100,000 apiece. My kid's in the fucking hospital. I don't hear you complaining when I bring you a nice fat envelope. You don't give a shit where that comes from. Don't give me that look. It was a fucking horse. What are you, a vegetarian? You eat beef and sausage by the fucking carload.
There's an episode I wanted to touch on that's much less well remembered, which is often held as one of the worst episodes in arguably one of the weaker seasons of The Sopranos, called Christopher, that I think we mentioned briefly in messaging, which was, you know, the one where Silvio and a couple of the other members of the crew get angry about Columbus Day and they get into kind of arguments with Native Americans about Columbus Day memorialization and things like that.
Oh yeah, which felt incredibly current.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's arguably more of a kind of 2021 episode than it was, you know, a 2002 episode in some ways. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, back in 2002, that probably seemed unbelievable,
yeah,
and less credible. And now it's like, oh, that's pretty how accurate to the world that we live in. Yeah, yeah. Maybe that has something to do with me not standing out as a terrible episode.
One thing I only learned in reading up for this podcast was, you know, how Tony Sirico, who plays Paulie, is fairly absent for quite a lot of the fourth series, and they have him in jail for some minor charge or something like that.
Yeah,
that was I knew actually that was to cover an injury he'd had. I think he was having back surgery, so they kind of had to, you know, kind of like a more minor version of what they did with Olivia's character, is they have to take him out for a bit, and that's a believable way to have him taken out, you know, and you can do stuff with that.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Christopher episode about Columbus was written with him in the Silvio role, and I see why that makes more sense. Because Paulie is that kind of character who would get absurdly obsessed with a sort of fairly childish, you know, hobby horse, basically, and, you know, get way too into it, and Tony would have to sort of slap him down. Whereas nothing we've seen about Silvio. Silvio is not a nice man, but Silvio is not that kind of guy. He's like the cold, you know, fairly practical consigliere character.
Yeah, it fits way more with his character, actually, doesn't it? Yeah, because I think Paulie would get up in arms about that. He's kind of, for better or for worse, a kind of an idealist in his own mind, isn't he? And no offense, T. It's the hand that goes up. I love it. That's his mannerisms are just the best. But
all the hand gestures and stuff are great. Yeah.
Yeah, and Silvio's hunch is just like it's just great, like Marty Feldman. It's just fantastic. He's inhuman.
It's the best and weirdest posture ever, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. If there was an Oscar for best posture, he'd definitely get it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I quite like, even though it's, you know, accident in a sense, I quite like what it does to Silvio's character in the sense that they're all kind of. They're not necessarily uber realistic characters. And in fact, you know, Silvio and Paulie are maybe the ones that are towards the edges of that. But I think it was Rich who's been on this podcast before. I was talking to maybe 10 years ago about The Sopranos, and I was saying that to me, it's one of the things it has in common with, you know, if you talk about great television shows, it has stuff in common with. In a sense, it has more in common with something like The Simpsons than it does with maybe other prestige drama shows like The Wire and stuff. And all I mean by that is kind of the New Jersey of The Sopranos is this huge satirical kind of cartoon in a sense, but not to diminish it, because obviously The Simpsons, as you know, as a fan, is also this kind of grotesque sketch of America with all these ridiculous characters who are these really, really quickly realized kind of caricatures of kind of like mostly awful people as well, you know.
Yeah, no, it's you're very clear on who everyone is very, very quickly, and so what gives it that? I guess it's it doesn't have to be believable because nobody knows this world. You know, it's almost like they can draw it. They've got pretty much freedom to do whatever they want because, you know, no one knows what it's like to be a Godfather style gangster, you know, really. So it's almost like they've got a private world that they can kind of, you know, pretty much create from more or less from scratch with stereotypes and with archetypal characters. But, you know, again, you think, oh well, these murderers and you know, and sort of organized criminals probably are that crazy. You know, like, you know, why wouldn't they be? Like, you know, they're capable of anything. So yeah, and it's the characters like Meadow and AJ and, you know, and people on the outside and some of the, you know, sort of more like police characters and stuff that give it that kind of sense of reality, isn't it? You know, like that people can, and like with the episode, the college episode, it's like, you know, these two worlds, you know, exist at the same time, very, very close quarters, but are completely separate.
Well, and that's, you know, as you say, Meadows kind of a character that's been used to sketch in the New York side of the divide at the same time as more gangster-involved characters like Johnny Sack and Carmine are, you know, and they're filling out the world like that, aren't they? Like, you know, in Series 4, for example, you get kind of this is another thing I think people find a bit frustrating about Series 4 is they start teasing up this quite big New York clashing with New Jersey kind of stuff. To do with Johnny Sack's skullduggeries and Carmine backing him up or not backing him up, and there's that kind of bit towards the end of the series where they both basically Johnny Sack and Carmine both call in hits on each other, and they get called off. And it's kind of Tony's just kind of left bemused essentially by the end of it. But you get the feeling that this it's that very tense scene with Johnny Sack where he sort of drives away from him, and things are not going to be quite the same between them. Yeah,
I loved that. It was kind of the some of the scenes between him and Tony, the sort of like. It wouldn't. If you want to move on this, it wouldn't. I don't mind. You can do it. I won't say it was you. And all that kind of stuff. I loved all that stuff. Like that was really cool because again, it was such huge kind of stakes there. But like you didn't having that kind of. Someone said like Donald Trump is kind of like a gangster in the way that he doesn't ever commit to anything verbally. It's all winks and nods and sly, gestures, and that's what it felt like with them. It was just kind of like, if this happens, then what you're gonna do. It's such huge. Huge sort of events that could take place, but it was all done like really subtly, and I loved that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Trump, because like essentially what they're doing in Series 4 with the Esplanade project and stuff is like New York proximate property business deals and stuff, and it's kind of like it's not a million miles away, for someone like a younger Giuliani essentially to be involved with that kind of world,
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they'd like introduced a sort of a circus Trump character, like in Gremlins 2. What's this? What's that? What's the stamp? Is it or what's the tower called?
Oh yeah. You're testing me now, but yeah. The guy in that who's kind of, well, he's actually a much nicer version of Trump, isn't he? In most respects.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's like, how great is that film? Jesus Christ! No, what's
because you can't make up a fictional version of Trump that is worse than the real figure.
Yeah, because in Gremlins 2, he's just what's the word? He's just crazy, isn't he? He's not like he's very optimistic. Like he's just an eccentric billionaire, isn't he?
I told you there's a Star Trek novel from the early 90s where
Clamp Tower. Clamp, something like Daniel Clamp
or Crank, yeah. I told you there's a Star Trek novel from the early 90s where there's a Ferengi character in it who's introduced, and he is so venal and so obsessed and so egotistical, even beyond other Ferengi, that he tries to make a deal with the Borg, which doesn't go well for him. But he's so modelled on Trump. Like, I mean, I picked it up at Mum's house, a few years ago, and I was reading it, and I was like, wow, all this dialogue is they're definitely making fun of Trump at this point, because that book came out about the same time as Gremlins 2, for example.
That's what you forget, isn't it? Though, like Trump's been around for a very, very long time, and he's been a celebrity for a long time. It's like since the 70s. He's nothing new.
No, it's true. I mean, going back to The Sopranos for a second, I mean, how great is that episode? I think we definitely messaged about this one, the one where I think it's called The Wait, where it's been building for a while, but you know that Johnny Sack has heard about this joke about his wife Ginny's weight.
Yeah.
And you just have that wonderful build up of kind of like tensions on both sides, where Ralphie's having to call up to kind of apologize but not apologize, like he's because he can't acknowledge he did it.
Yeah. And Tony's coaching him through it, and he's like, what does he do? What's the mistake that he makes? And Tony's like, no, don't say that, like, or something, like, there's like, he just puts one foot wrong, doesn't he? And he hangs up.
Yeah. And
like, Johnny at the other end. And
you don't sense that phone call has any way of going right. Because, Johnny Sack would essentially just stay on the line until he did make a fuck up like that. And, it's Ralph, so of course he will. But, it's kind of... That is though, where The Sopranos is closer to that episodic sitcom kind of thing, isn't it? Because it's, we talked about short stories before, but you could also say sitcom in the sense that this is the one where this happens and this is what they have to deal with, and all the characters are bouncing off each other. And so many sitcoms are about one character getting pissed off with another one and it having to get resolved at the end, and...
Yeah. I'm going to miss a lot of the characters. I mean, it's like, everyone loves a villain, and there's so many villains in this, and it's like in the same way that when Joffrey died in Game of Thrones, and I just missed him so much immediately. I was just like, oh, really? Does he have to die? And it's the same with the characters in this with Ralphie. I'm just like, he's just so fucking entertaining. Speaking of Ralphie, actually, he has one of my best scenes in season 4, is where the chef, whose name is
Artie, yeah.
Artie, when Artie wants to do the business deal with the spirits, he's trying to like get on the drink game, and he comes to Ralphie to ask for the 50,000 or whatever, and he just says, no, I'm sorry, dude, I can't lend it to you because I won't be able to hurt you if you can't pay me back. And I just thought that was the nicest thing a gangster could say to you. Like, I'm not gonna help you because I am incapable of hurting you.
Yeah,
like, because I like you too much.
Well, it's a very finely poised moral kind of thing, though, isn't it? Because it's like it is sort of saying I won't do that, but it is saying if I did lend it to you, I'd hurt you. I definitely.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a shark acknowledging its own teeth in a way, isn't it? Like it's kind of.
Well, yeah. He's saying you are in. I like you. I'm not gonna be able to hurt you, but you are also incapable of pulling this off. Yeah. I know this isn't going to work for you.
Yeah. And Ralphie's quite a pathetic man, so it shows you how pathetic Artie is that Ralphie can have that kind of moral judgment on him.
Speaking of Artie, God, Jersey's Basil Fawlty.
Yeah, he's oh my god, he's such an amazing character, and he's got such an attractive wife, and he's just makes such a mess of everything. It's really.
I was like, shit, is she still working there? She's still working with him. Like,
I think throughout the Sopranos they have like a low key version of Tony and Carmella's thing where like she just fades out occasionally, and they make reference to them having troubles or her like sleeping at a hotel, and you just kind of like, yeah, their marriage is like a pale mirror of Tony and Carmella's, but it's not worth any gram weight, it's just because Artie's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, he's brilliant. I hope nothing bad happens to him.
Well, I wanted to. It's a little good segue into no comment, by the way, but I want to little segue into good bridge from Artie. Actually, is I want to talk to you a little bit about Chris and also about Adriana. Because there's that episode with Artie, isn't there, where he's it might be the one where he tries to make the deal actually, where you realise that he's been kind of pining for Adriana. I think in not much more than just a kind of lonely middle-aged man kind of horn dog kind of way, really, but he's kind of, because he's Artie, he's not able to do anything about that, and he just makes a fool of himself, and it's all very pathetic. I mean, we talked a bit about Chris. In terms of some of the previous episodes, everything from Pine Barrens to whoever did this, but obviously the kind of, if you want to like map an arc for Chris over these 2 seasons, he's basically getting drawn further and further in, isn't he? And there's things like, I mean, he gets made in series 3, for example. There's a really nice light-hearted Goodfellas joke, isn't there, where they kind of he's worried basically about showing up at getting made and getting hit, getting whacked, and like Adriana's like, you watch too many movies, and then there's that like it cuts straight to him like being zoomed in on by the camera in his fancy suit like Henry Hill, and it's kind of
yeah, that was a great in joke, but it's also they knew that the audience was thinking the same. That's quite clever. Like, let's acknowledge, let's beat them to it. Because a lot of the people who watch Sopranos, 60 to 70% are definitely going to have seen Goodfellas. There's no doubt about it. So they know who they're writing, who they're sort of playing to. So yeah, for them to nip that in the bud there, I thought that was really cool.
I think there was actually questions about. Do you remember in like going way back to The Godfather in the 70s? Do you remember there was kind of stuff that like weird stuff that Coppola got into, or at least that the producers got into about with the actual mafia figures, where they were kind of. The mafia were kind of like wary about the Godfather existing in general, but they were kind of okay as long as it was vague about certain things, and as long as it kind of showed them in a respectful light, or in a sense, and stuff like that. But by the time you get to the noughties with The Sopranos, I think it's almost like a big thing. We were talking about back in series 1 when Tony garrots that guy. That's like a big point for his character. I think in a way a big point for mafia portrayal on screen is in that episode where Christopher gets made, they actually show the making of him, because that's like that's a secret mafia ceremony. You're not meant to portray that. That's a secret. What happens there?
We never got that far in any other movie. They always end up getting whacked like along the way. Yeah. So that was really cool. It was almost like a Freemason type thing, wasn't it? Like crazy,
slightly
crazy
a cult
things
as well, isn't it? Because they draw the blood and stuff. And it's kind of they have to swear. They burn a card, a sort of rosary, or like a kind of holy card and stuff. And it's kind of
it's like a mixture between Masonry, Catholicism, and witchcraft.
Yeah, It really is. Yeah, it's just quite a good summary of the mafia in general, I think, actually. But certainly the kind of weird role it plays in sort of the contemporary United States. I want to because Christopher's this. I love Christopher. I think if you had to pick a best character from the Sopranos who isn't Tony, he might be an obvious candidate, and he's Michael Imperioli, who plays him, is a really interesting dude as well. Seems really nice, and he's kind of
he seems
writing
very
several
sweet
episodes of The Sopranos, and he's been doing a podcast about it, which is interesting. But he because obviously he's got problems with addiction, and he keeps spiraling deeper and deeper. And I made passing reference to the intervention episode. Which, I mean, talk about, even though it's this horrible, depressing. Everything Christopher does is both horribly depressing and embarrassing and and tragic, but also just laced with humor, isn't it? Like, the bit where he sits on Adriana's dog.
Yeah, that was just your your what's the call? Your sympathy for all the characters, be they human or animal, is just so loose with these characters that when Adriana's dog gets on, you kind of like, well, Adriana, that's what happens, dude, when you're going out with a mafia junkie. But also, I love the bit where they're talking about Christopher comes out of rehab and they're talking about the 12 steps, and Tony says and he says like. And Chris says, well, one of the steps is I've got to like ring up everyone that I ever wronged and apologize to them. Yeah. And obviously your mind goes like, most of them are dead, the people that we wronged. So Tony goes, hey, maybe skip that one.
Yeah, no, it's
just so subtle, like. Yeah,
so
therefore you can't do it. Basically, you're not capable of doing the 12 steps because it's not. Most people haven't killed anyone.
Yeah, so. well, not even killed, but like that links in well with the Johnny Sack Ralphie thing, doesn't it? Because we've seen how difficult it is to try and apologize for things in that world. And kind of whether it's best to just let sleeping dogs lie. It's
that's a good connection. Yeah, I didn't think of that. That's good.
I mean that talk of comedy scenes. I mean that scene where they actually have the intervention for Christopher is one of the most ridiculous. I mean, talk sitcomish as well, but that's one of the funniest scenes in The Sopranos, just flat out. I think
yeah, they just start like digging up dirt on everybody, like immediately talking about pickups and money and skimming off the top and like everything, and it all comes out, and then Tony finds out about the dog. Like, and Pyomai's just happened, doesn't it? So then Tony finds out that he sat on a dog and killed the dog, and you're like, Tony obviously loves animals, so like, holy shit.
I think Pine Barrens might even come up, because Paulie's there and stuff. And I think, the bit I always remember is the bit where Silvio just, he's like, they've all got meant to read like testimony of how Chris has wronged them or like hit rock bottom or whatever. And Silvio just has a little piece of paper and he like almost looks like a Christmas cracker joke or something. He just unfurls it. He's like, one time I came into the toilet and you had your head in the toilet. Disgusting.
Yeah.
Like,
that was it. Me and Sal were in hysterics. Like that was the disgusting. Yeah, didn't even make eye contact.
How seriously he takes that role, he rehearsed that.
But also, is that as bad as it gets for him? Like that's Silvio, like you were saying about Silvio, he's so much like involved. Like he's got his head in the sand, like with a lot of things he doesn't really notice all the shit going on. He's just all business. So
it's almost like he's such a ridiculously styled character as well. He's almost like the cat from Red Dwarf or something. Like the worst thing he can imagine is your hair being out of place.
Yeah, yeah, disgusting. Yeah.
A moral sin, I mean, obviously, Christopher's got some way to go yet as a character, and you'll find out that as you watch series 5 and 6. But like, what about the because we touched on Adriana, like, what about this horrible mess she's got herself into with the with the FBI and everything? Because that's, I suppose that we already seen Pussy. Obviously, I guess particularly in series 2, he's the kind of the insider who is falling into the FBI's clutches, and you realize what a horrible bind that is. But I mean, Adriana, we talked about innocent characters before in The Sopranos. I mean, I know she has her moments, but she's one of the nicer people in their orbit, isn't she? And she has this horrible. I mean, before she even gets involved with the FBI, she has a horrible time from Christopher most of the time, and he's just terribly unreliable, and it hits her, and they don't shy away from that either. And but this FBI situation is just dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah. I just, as soon as she sat down with them, I just thought, you're dead. Just from the start, I just thought you're gonna die, and like I just, and I did have that protective feeling of, rather than being like, well, you get what you deserve, I was like, oh, just go, man, just run. Like, I really had that kind of. So yeah, I do have affection for that character, and I think, like you say, she's the lesser of many evils in the show, and naive and stupid and gullible, but yeah, I think she's got a good heart, and you've never seen her actively hurt anybody or witness any murderous behavior either. That's the other thing, is like it's actually alluded to that Carmella knows about murders and deaths and things like it's like, didn't Tony say we tried that or something? We tried talking about it and it didn't work or something. So it's alluded to that like maybe decades ago Tony tried to come clean about stuff and she didn't want to know.
Yeah.
But with Adriana, it is more like you think she probably hasn't seen anything that dodgy. She knows about the money side of it and the crimes to do with cash and to do with laundering and so on. But like she doesn't necessarily know about the violence involved, apart from the violence committed to her.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's awful. I suppose she's starting to have her eyes open more. It's not exactly she's experiencing new stuff. She's just looking at it in a different light. Like there's kind of, I mean, it's kind of like Pussy actually. When he was seeing the FBI and he was kind of just stuck in this terrible catch-22 situation. So he did what you probably would do and try and squirm and get out of that trap and try and see if there's any possible way it could turn to your advantage.
Yeah. He entered it somewhat naively, thinking that it would work out, and it just there's just no way that's going to work out for anybody, because if she tells Chris, like, Chris is way too involved now, and sort of obviously he has the same loyalty that Tony has to the cause, to the mafia and in general, and the way and the sort of the life. So yeah, and if any of Tony's conciliaries find out about it, she's dead. So yeah, I know she's walking on a fine tightrope, but I've got no idea what the next 2 seasons, kind of 3 seasons really, isn't it? Because like you said, 6 is more or less 2 seasons worth of shows, isn't it? Is it 24 episodes long or 23 episodes long?
Yeah, so you've got more than a third of the show still to go, basically, even though you'd think it would have from series 5 and 6, and yeah, series 6 are like a one mega season really, or some people just treat 6B as season 7, which you could look at it as. If so, it's a shorter one than the first half of 6, but. Yeah, I mean, you got a hell of a lot of stuff to come. I mean, do you? Because we've touched on so many things, and as I was mentioning before, season 4 ends not with things unresolved, but with a lot of stuff still hovering. Adriana's involved with the FBI, Tony and Carmella's marriage, which that they're now separated. They've moved out of living together. That's happened by the end of the episode. As I say, the stuff with New York seeming pretty volatile. I mean, what are you? And not to mention all the other minor characters who have their own little squabbles and petty jealousies and things like that. I mean. What are you sort of hyped to see in series 5? What are you hyped to see what happens?
I think Adriana's a big concern, because I feel like they're going somewhere strongly with that. It's mainly interesting characters that I've the most fondness for. So obviously Larry David, I'm very interested and intrigued what you're talking about with that.
Yeah.
Artie, obviously. I feel that, I don't know about Tony and Carmella. I don't know. I kind of was surprised that they didn't end it more of a sort of them just on a resolution just to stay together just for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean? Just for appearances. But I guess that in a way they've been doing that for decades. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So I probably, to be honest with you, Adriana is the most. That's the thing that I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Well, no comment about any of that, obviously. But I think I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about Series 5, and I think that's talking again about these lists of best seasons and worst seasons. I mean, Series 5 tends to come very, very close to the top, if not the top, depending on the opinion of people you talk to. So, and yeah, I know one thing about Series 5 is that's when Steve Buscemi is introduced.
Awesome,
yeah,
awesome. You showed me an episode with him. Probably 15 years ago or whenever it was on, and said this was really cool. I think you showed me a scene of a dream sequence with Steve Buscemi in it.
Right, yeah.
But again, it wasn't spoilerific because it was 15 years ago, so I can't remember any of it. But are you willing to show your cards in the way that are you willing to say which season is your favourite?
It's kind of. Overall, it's either 5 or the whole of 6, and that's okay. That's really hedging it a bit. But I think series 6 does to me form a sort of cogent whole, and I love it because it kind of, no spoilers specifically, but the mood of the series from this point onwards, I would say, just gets more and more doomy and kind of really, really kind of American Gothic in a sense, and kind of dream sequences maybe happen a little bit more, or certainly get more interesting, and I think it just kind of from this point onwards is the really, really good stuff for me, if I had to pick. So
right.
that's to hype you further, but it's an honest answer as well,
And is season 4 the weakest for you, do you think?
I was thinking that because I actually, because obviously I've rewatched not in their entirety, but I rewatched a fair bit of this with you in the last 6 months, and kind of I think so, but there's just some such stunning episodes in it. It feels hard to dismiss it. I think honestly the weakest for me in terms of the whole thing was probably series 2 so far. But it was just because on this rewatch I noticed more how we talked about this in the last episode. But how they're sort of struggling to kind of get the show's motor running again after the first series. They kind of played so many of their cards in that it's it's hard to get things running and up and work out what's happening with Richie Aprile and Janice and things like that. It's just
I guess they didn't know that they were going to be making more. I guess it's that whole thing of I guess a lot of shows act like that. They I mean, these days, I heard a discussion on another podcast talking about what sucks about modern shows is they always show loads in the first episode and then say 6 months earlier You know, they show you like a bunch of shit that is going to happen,
Yeah.
and then they lead up to it, because it's like I don't want to say people's attention spans are worse than they used to be. I don't know if that's true, but like they seem to, certainly in TV, like, you know, history, they never used to do that with shows. They used to let it build and let it grow. Like, you know, in The Sopranos, even you know, not as long as it was like The Sopranos, but yeah, I'm a bit sick of that now. Like, you know, that format, because I see it in pretty much every new show that I watch, especially American network stuff. They're just like, you know, this murder happens then 6 months earlier, and it's like, no, don't do that. Come on.
The show I mentioned, I can't remember if you ended up watching it. The show I noticed that most egregiously on recently was The Serpent, you know, that crime drama with Jenna Coleman in it.
Yeah, which was really cool, but yeah, they did that, didn't they?
They did a whole bunch of that, and it was really, this makes me sound like a sort of confused old man like Junior or something, but, you know, it kind of, it's already set in a foreign country to me, and it's set in a foreign timescape. So if you then start jumbling things up with characters I'm just getting to know, it's like, why? What? I don't understand what this is adding. You know, like it's.
Yeah, it was. In that show's case, I think it almost felt like, you know, that was that for that show. It kind of, I wouldn't say it worked like necessarily, but it was just kind of like I felt that you're doing that throughout the entire thing. That's kind of that's almost like a style in itself. But, you know, with other shows, when they just basically, you know, blow it all in the pilot, and it must be for that reason. You know, when they show the first episode to people and just go, look, loads of exciting shit's going to happen really soon, and it's just like, yeah, The Serpent probably did it to death. I can't actually remember, but
can I ask you a quick question about TV seasons? That is something that, you know, I can't speak to, but I was wondering about your opinion on this, because, you know, as mentioned before about Steve Buscemi coming up in The Sopranos. We mentioned the first episode of this that you are a big Boardwalk Empire fan and watched the whole of Boardwalk Empire, and I've seen, you know, half the first series, so I can't speak to it.
Yeah.
What's your favourite? I think I've heard your answer to this first question before, but for the listeners, what's your favourite series of Boardwalk Empire, and what do you remember feeling about Boardwalk Empire when it was at the end of its fourth series?
Basically, I can't remember how many series there were. Was it 5 or 6? I think there might have been 6. Yeah, but it was pretty much constantly brilliant, Boardwalk Empire, and I think that's why it's one of those things that, you know, like as I say, I just, you know, I still regard it as probably I think it might be my favourite TV series of all time of American TV. When it got to around season 4 and 5, they were building to something that happened, and they were building to it for a long time, and when it sounds, I know this sounds like really, I don't know, putting it oversimplifying crazily here, but when the thing happened that they were building to, it was predicted very early. You know, you kind of knew it was coming. However, when it happened and everything slotted into place, it was probably the best overall arc of a TV show, because it was that thing that, you know, once you look back, you can see it from pretty much from the first or second season how it's going to end, and how it all started. More importantly, how it all started. I think that was a better way of putting it. So yeah, it was a constant build, and it got better as it went on. And I think with Boardwalk season 4, 5, and I think there was 6. I actually can't remember. 4 or 5, but definitely the last 2 seasons were the best. So I think I probably feel pretty similarly to you and how you feel about The Sopranos.
That's interesting that we both, you know, and obviously I can't fully engage with you unless I actually got around to watching it. This will be where you turn the tables on me and force me to watch all the Boardwalk Empire next year. But that is interesting, isn't it? There's something about the build up of mood in gangster pieces, which you know, where let's face it, the theme tends to be that everyone's going to hell.
Yeah.
There's something about that, you know, that build up of mood is part of the attraction. You know, it's part of what I think. When I watch The Sopranos, I kind of languish in that mood, and because I do remember, and this will be more relevant to series 5 and 6, although it's certainly not a non-issue for 3 and 4. Is like, I remember periods of my life when I found it very hard to watch The Sopranos, because I get so into it, and but it's very depressing. You know, a lot of it's very depressing.
Yeah, there's, you know, I can't imagine there's many characters who walk off into the sunset at the end of it. You know, I can't imagine anyone coming out very well. And what was kind of the depressing thing about Boardwalk, or like how bleak it was that it kind of built to a moment, to almost like a prequel moment, if you like. So it built up to a point of where you saw where everything sprouted from, basically one event. Basically, you know, and it was really clever in that way, because it made you think about life and how, you know, the sliding doors thing, you know, like, you know, if this hadn't have happened, none of this horrible shit would have gone down at least in the same way. So yeah, it's great. I really recommend that you watch it. And as I'm watching Sopranos, I think you owe it to me to watch Boardwalk.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I could twist my arm into watching a gangster epic. That's fine.
Make sure you have a bottle of bourbon ready though, because everyone drinks bourbon all the time out of crystal glasses, and it makes you want to drink whiskey like nothing else.
Well, it's interesting because, as you mentioned, there was sort of fetishization of like set dressing and things like that. Essentially, Boardwalk Empire obviously is a period piece. One weird thing I was thinking, that maybe to close on this note, really, but like one thing I was thinking about The Sopranos is I'm now watching it as a noughties period piece, as a late 90s noughties period piece. I know it's not meant to be that; it wasn't designed as that, but it's become that to an extent. And I was saying something about like the air of doom. We mentioned the Twin Towers falling, for example, between series 3 and 4. Towards the end of The Sopranos, there's more and more of an air of degradation and kind of despair and things like that. But what you realise is, I think the last episodes, if I'm getting this correct, I think the last episodes of The Sopranos were like filmed and written in like about 2006. So this is all pre-financial crash stuff.
Wow.
So you're kind of like, even the characters who like are alive at the end of the show, you're just about to head into the maws of the beast. This is not,
Well, that's like organised crime might have come off all right there. I don't know, if they probably came off better than honest working folk, but who knows? But yeah, it's crazy to think of things like pre-Obama, pre-financial crash, anything. I mean, to me, I don't know if you feel the same, but when people say 2002. It doesn't feel like ancient history somehow, but then when you actually look at the things that happened then and what you're doing, then you think, oh shit, that was 20 years ago. 20 years is not a small amount of time, but I think it might be to do with, I'm kind of fascinated by time passing and decades and generations and how people, I think I often ask myself the question of like, did my parents feel the passing of time in the same way that I do? Did they think in 1985, do you remember what things were like in 1965? Or so did they have the same kind of like reverence for the past? And I'm not hyper nostalgic in the way that I think everything was better. I just think I'm sort of fascinated by the passing of time and how some things change a lot and other things you think haven't changed at all when they really have, like that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? The sort of perception of older times, to me, is some of it's really skewed and some of it is very accurate.
Yeah, well, and also, The Sopranos has now been off the air for 14 years, I think I'm right in saying, and that's I primed you, didn't I, when you went in to watch Series 1? I was like, basically bear with Series 1 because apart from any plot things or anything, it looks a bit 90s still.
Yeah, because it was filmed in 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what is interesting about it is that Anthony Jr. is about my age, so his clothing style and listening to Limp Bizkit and all the sort of metal stuff, he's a proper little baby mosher growing up, and I'm just thinking, oh shit, this is 2002. Yeah, I was dressing like that. I am literally the same age as Anthony, and I was listening to the same music.
That's right.
Not as much Marilyn Manson as him, but that's cool.
You do track AJ pretty neatly, actually, in that sense, don't you? I'll be again, no spoilers, but I'll be really interested to see what you make of AJ in later series as well, because you were talking about the noughties and stuff. I'd say series 5 and 6 go in a bit more on the kind of Bush era stuff, and obviously for them it was just the present, but they comment on that kind of stuff a bit more. It's not that every episode becomes Fahrenheit 9/11 or anything like that, but there's definitely stuff like that, and maybe more of it involves the kids in some ways, because it's like, when you're that age, or and starting to just notice politics and stuff, it all feels very intense, doesn't it? And they kind of
that was the age, yeah. That shows that it wasn't just the youth. Then it was kind of in the public zeitgeist, that everyone was kind of a little bit more politicized, because I guess war. I mean, they were at war, weren't they? It was Vietnam again.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess we're talking post 9/11 series in series 4. So series 5, when you get to it, will be the first post Iraq War season. So you might see some knock-ons in that in terms of what the characters are chatting about and stuff as well. So
yeah, I think that was an even bigger deal for Americans than it was for British people, really. Obviously, because Bush was their president, and also they had a lot more boots on the ground, didn't they, than Britain did. But yeah, so yeah, it was like, and obviously the generation that made The Sopranos probably were old enough to remember Vietnam, and remember it happening,
Yeah. Well, at the risk, I think if I go any further than this, I'll be at the risk of spoiling series 5 and 6. So I'll stop there. But I can't, even more so after that little primer. I can't wait for you to move on and tell me about your reactions to that as well. Before that, though, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Plug me pluggables. So yeah, we're carrying on with Matt and Mike Pull Focus, which is our YouTube movie discussion channel where we talk about movies that we love, and we also have had a guest a month on this year, which are keeping up that trend. We interviewed Rob Parker, who is now an Audible best-selling author. He was talking about Jurassic Park, which is his favourite movie, and we're shortly getting on Joseph Delaney to talk about his favourite movie and his books, the Spooks Apprentice series. So yeah, we're getting a lot of people that we want to talk to about movies, and a lot of people who have been pretty successful in their field. So yeah, so it's Matt and Mike Pull Focus on YouTube, and we're also on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook as well.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that. And yeah, do give my regards to Mike. And I just wanted to say, you know, I kind of briefly mentioned at the start, but, you know, this is the 30th episode of the EscapeGoat podcast, and it really, you know, I mean, you know, I've done the gushing tributes on social media and stuff, you know, obviously a whole bunch of people. The nature of this is it's been very collaborative and widely collaborative, but and I've thanked those people as well. But, you know, you really, I mean, this show would not be in anything like fighting state as it is without your guidance and involvement. So I really, you know, just, you know, without getting too brotherly sentimental, I just did want to say a huge thank you to you.
Dude, my pleasure, man, and it's always good to talk about these things. I always say to people, we would be talking about these things on the phone anyway, so it's just good to shove a microphone in front of it, and hopefully people can enjoy it, and it's very cathartic as well. So yeah, there's a selfish element to it.
Well, you know, it's the most difficult thing a big brother can do is acknowledge that his little brother knows what to do about things. So it's kind of, you know, I think it's one of the largest gestures I've ever made in my life was to ask for advice.
Dude, my microphone is bigger than yours, so we'll leave
it. It certainly is. It's actually in shot right now.
Yeah, you can't see my face.
but yeah, thanks, Matt. Really appreciated that, and thanks for joining us. And I'll obviously have you back on again to talk about the Sopranos, and I'm sure about other stuff as well. So until then, say goodbye, Matt.
Keep up the good work. Goodbye. Good luck with your Legend of Zelda playthrough as well.
Oh God, can't wait. Episode 31. Little preview there. And to all the listeners, see you next time.
Peace.
Perché mi dighi sto parole amar, perché me parli o cuore mi dormiente Catarì, non te scordar che t'ha aiutato cuore Catarì, non te scordar. Catarì, Catarì, che pena dicere, sto parlando con me da spase me, tu non ci pensa sto dolore mio, tu non ci pensi tu, non tieni cuore ingrato, t'hai pigliato a vita mia, tutto è passato, non c'è più.
You've been listening to the EscapeGoat podcast, hosted by David Fagiani. If you want to contact the podcast with any feedback or thoughts, you can leave comments on our Libsyn page or under our YouTube videos, or email us at escapegoatpod@gmail.com. You can also reach the show on Twitter on @egoat_pod and follow us for new episode notifications, or get me personally on @deep_Fagiani. This podcast is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as our Libsyn site, escapegoatpodcast.libsyn.com. Original intro, outro, and any other incidental music for this podcast is composed, produced, and made available by permission of Richard Gilbert.
Bonjour, good day, how is your family? Bonjour, good day, how is your wife? I need 6 eggs, that's too expensive. There must be more than this provincial life. I'm going to make Belle my wife.
Right. Whenever you're ready.
Right, okay, awesome.
Great. Back in. 3, 2, 1.